try to get to a jurisdiction that is not predominantly Mormon like it is where they are in East Idaho because of Chad Daybell's warped interpretation of the Mormon religion. Let's bring in our think tank tonight and see what they have to say about all of this. Joining us, all right, we've got Alana Yakovlev, who's a criminal defense attorney. She's joining us along with Neama Rahmani and Dave Arenberg, who is the state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Neema's out in L.A. And Alana, you're in L.A. too, right?
Yes. I'm in Los Angeles.
All right. Awesome, awesome. So let's start here. And Dave Arenberg, you're the state attorney. You're the prosecutor. I'll start with you. Would you challenge the defense trying to move this case if you believe their true motivation is just trying to get into some sort of a Mormon-free courthouse? Because you can't get rid of jurors based upon the religion, I don't think.
You could try, Vinny, to resist the defense's certain attempt to move the trial, but it's not going to work. This thing is going to be moved, more likely perhaps to Boise, where you have a diverse jury pool. I think that it is a legitimate concern when you're talking about a large LDS community, and the prosecutor apparently is a leader in the LDS community. And these folks, Chad and Lori, look like they are a fringe element, a radicalization of the LDS movement that won't be thought of very highly by that jury pool. So yeah, as prosecutors, you would like it to be in the area where the crime was committed. And I have personal experience knowing that you can get a fair trial even in high profile cases. But as prosecutors, you also don't want your case to be thrown out on appeal. You don't want to get a conviction and then be thrown out on appeal because the jury was tainted. So I think the prosecutors may put up just a small fight, but they know this trial is going to be moved.
Alana, but at the end of the day, you can't go into a courtroom and start dismissing and getting rid of jurors based upon their religion, right? We can't do that. That doesn't seem fair. That seems kind of outrageous to me. It would be like dismissing jurors because of the color of their skin.
You are correct. However, the jurors must be reasonably objective here. And if it's impossible for them to rule based on the facts of the case, based on their imputed beliefs, I think there's not a person in this county that probably has 30,000 people that hasn't been talking about this case since the inception. I'd agree with my colleague and say that it's a huge risk for the prosecution not to sort of put up a small fight or, because if they don't move it, it definitely could get thrown out on appeal. And it's definitely the talk of the town. So the constitutional implications of getting a fair trial in this current county are slim to none.
Yeah, but it's the talk of every town. But I understand it's much more concentrated there. They lived this case. Neema, let me ask you, I want to get back to this LDS issue, because I'm offended. I don't think jurors should be dismissed based upon their religion. And I could see this being a huge issue during jury selection wherever they are, right? I mean, if say they're in Boise and we've got, a handful of LDS members who show up for jury duty, my guess is the defense is going to try to bounce them.
Oh, yeah, Vinny, I'm going to respectfully disagree with my colleagues. If I'm the prosecution, I fight this motion. It's clear form shopping, trying to get a more favorable jury pool somewhere farther away from where these murders happen. There's no reason you can't get a fair and impartial jury down there in southeast Idaho. That's really the standard, right? So, if the defense is going to raise this motion, and I know they will, they're going to have the burden of showing that they cannot get a reasonable, fair-minded jury where they are. I don't think they can meet that burden. This isn't a local case. This isn't even a statewide case. This is an international case where two parents, killed their children, buried them in the backyard. There's not a town, a county, a courthouse in the country that hasn't heard about these two.
Yeah, Dave, don't we have a thing called voir dire where we can ask jurors, hey, have you heard of anything? Yes. Can you put that aside and be fair and impartial? Don't we trust people to be able to focus just on what happens inside the courtroom and follow the judge's instructions?
And that's the key, Vinny. It's not whether they are aware of pretrial publicity. It's not whether they are aware of the facts of the case, because as the previous speaker said, yeah, this is an international case. But it's whether they can be impartial. And you're talking about a very small community with a large LDS population. And after the verdict, they're going to have to go back home to their community and explain it to them. So, yeah, I think the defense has a really good argument to say that there is no way they're going to get an impartial jury pool in that community. Now, Neama is right. The prosecutor should fight it. But in the end, it's going to be a tough fight. And I think prosecutors need to be very careful, because if you have that trial in that community and get a conviction, it is ripe for overturning it on appeal.
Yeah,
all right, when we come back, a murder. Final word.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. It's definitely an appellate issue, Vinny, but this case is going to be appealed. I expect murder charges to be added on conspiracy to commit murder. So, if you're the prosecution, you got to prepare yourself for an appeal anyway. You're not going to cut a deal in a case like this. So, just go all in, prepare for that appeal, and fight this as aggressively as you can. That would be my strategy as a prosecutor in this case.
I always loved talking about appeals when I was a prosecutor, because I know that meant that I won the case. And you know what? If we lose, we don't get to appeal anything. So, okay. When we come back, a murder mystery in Michigan looks like it may be solved, involving a professional poker player. Brutal, brutal case. The question is, what was the motive, and how did these two people from completely different worlds end up together? We'll be right back.
We get to know Susie based on our investigation, and what we find isn't always pretty. So we get to know that person throughout the course of the investigation. But I think you'd be better to talk to her family if they're willing to, or her friends, to find out who she was to them.
So that's saying there could be, some things in her past that people may not have known about that will come out in.
Well, let's face it, everybody has friends and there's things that people don't know about every one of us. So I'm sure that that's probably the case, but we're trying to tie that up in the follow-up investigation.
That's White Lake Police talking about Susie Zhao. She's a victim of a murder. She's a young woman who was a bit of a free spirit, professional poker player, brilliant, super smart. Went out to LA, Vegas, made hundreds of thousands of dollars playing poker, came back home to Michigan, and in about a month's time ended up murdered. And the question is, what happened here? Well, they've arrested someone, and he's a transient person, and she's a professional poker player, and somehow their paths crossed. We have more tonight from WXYZ, our affiliate in Detroit, from reporter Andrea Easom.
60-year-old Jeffrey Bernard Morris of Pontiac, seen here, slumped down in a hospital bed, dressed in jailhouse orange, a familiar wardrobe for this man, addressed an Oakland County judge on Tuesday.
This is a very serious matter before the court, a capital crime of homicide, premeditated homicide.
33-year-old Susie Zhao, an innocent, bright young woman in the prime of her life, was viciously, violently killed, and police say Morris is responsible. The tragedy took place in the middle of July, while the Troy native was back in Metro Detroit, spending time with family and friends who will miss her more than words can express.
She was a free spirit in the truest sense. She played by her own rules. She followed her dreams. Absolutely brilliant.
As a rising star on the professional poker circuit and other endeavors as well. This before Susie Q, as she is fondly referred, took her last breath. Sources tell 7 Action News the crime scene was grisly, gruesome, indicating that Susie was bound and then taken to the Pontiac Lake Recreation Area, where her body was set on fire. White Lake Police say she was found on July 13th. Evidence linked investigators to the suspect's vehicle, then to him. Jeffrey Bernard Morris and the long arm of the law have crossed paths plenty in the past. Morris is a convicted sex offender. Some of the other crimes on his rap sheet? Well, in 1989, a criminal sexual conduct charge in the 3rd degree. Morris pled guilty to misdemeanor domestic violence in 2009. And in 2010, Morris failed to register as a sex offender.
a domestic violence second conviction out of the 51st District Court.
White Lake Township police detectives, worried about Morris's previous behavior and the public safety, ask that he remain in the custody of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
Court is satisfied that there should not be a bond in this matter. The court is going to deny bond.
All right, so what exactly is going on here? How did this happen? Why did this happen? And how could the answers to those questions impact this upcoming murder trial? Let's bring back in our think tank. Alana, as I listened to the way the investigator delicately described it, he said, we learn facts that aren't pretty. Sometimes you don't know everything about someone. If Susie Zhao, also known as Susie Q, was involved in some illicit behavior, how much do you think that could potentially impact this trial? And I'm saying if, because we don't know.
I mean, without speculating further, it's hard to tell. They gave facts about his rap sheet, but I'm sure the FBI has their resources, technology that would bring evidence to link this individual that was arrested to this crime. Without knowing further, I know there's probably still in the middle of an investigation, probably, issuing warrants for social media, cell phones, forensics. All of these things take time to compile, so including that of the victim. So without knowing further how it may impact, I think that the horrendous nature of this tragic crime, leaves its mark for everyone.
Neama, I'm trying to figure out how this woman, and she's been described as great personality, no enemies, brilliant, which you have to be smart to play poker. I mean, smart people are drawn to it for whatever reason, the strategy and everything else you got to do. But a bit of a free spirit. Somehow she's regularly going to this motel. There are some facts that aren't pretty. If there's some illicit behavior somehow woven into what Susie Zhao was doing, how much does that hurt or hinder the prosecution of this man?
I don't think it's going to affect the prosecution, but this is an investigation that's taken some dramatic turns, right? I mean, she's someone who was local here in LA. We've been tracking this case, but she's 33 years old. She moves back home. Her last win was in 2012, her last big tournament win at least. And her former roommates are telling the local media here that she's lost her bankroll and she's broke. And then, she found her body is actually burned, her corpse. So it looks like it's payback for some gambling debt, right? Then it takes this completely different turn where you have the sex offender, questions now about what Susie was doing, how she was earning money when she moved back to Michigan. So there's a lot that we don't know. We know now that it's not gambling related, but what she was doing and how someone like her would happen to encounter a transient sex offender. There's a lot of questions in this case, but I still think it's a strong prosecution case. You got a body that's been burned, that's been found. I don't, foresee any issues putting this guy away for quite some time.
Dave Arenberg, trying this case, I always say, and when I learned trial advocacy back in the day, it's about telling a story to a jury so they can understand what happened. It seems like this story is not going to be pretty.
No, and it's not unusual for prosecutors to have unsavory victims. Now, we don't know all the details about Susie Q, but that police chief or police spokesman, he did not have a good poker face himself, because it was clear that he had uncovered details about her that he did not want to mention at this point, but it's going to come out. Now, look, I don't want to jump ahead because she was obviously respected in the poker world and by all accounts was a good person. But you can bet that the defense lawyers will put her on trial. They will point to her conduct and make her out to be the real bad player here, even though she was the victim and she was treated so incomprehensibly, where she was murdered and her body was burned. But that's a job of criminal defense lawyers. Dead men tell no tales. She won't be there to defend herself. It'll be up to the prosecutors to tell the story the right way.
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen in this one. All right, folks, we got a lot more to get to tonight on the program. When we return, We're going to talk about the George Floyd case. Huge development. There's body cam footage that has been sealed by the judge. But somehow, some way, a publication overseas got a copy of a big chunk of that body cam footage illegally somehow. I mean, someone got it illegally and leaked it to the overseas publication. So a couple questions tonight. From what we've seen of that, what impact will it have on the case? And will the judge just release all of it? Should the judge just release all of it? We'll talk about that when we return. Big news in the George Floyd case, and the judge's not going to be happy about it. The judge has got to be angry. There is body cam footage from the day George Floyd died. And that body cam footage has been sealed by the court, by the judge. But he allowed a certain number of people to come in and take a look at that footage. And somehow, some way, body cam footage has been leaked overseas to a publication who's now posted it on the internet. Ted Rollins has more.
This is a still image of leaked police body cam video published by the Daily Mail in violation of a court order in the George Floyd murder case.
What do you want? I can breathe. Please, Neama Dick.
It's different than this video, which millions have seen, showing George Floyd dying in police custody. The police body cam videos, which feature the entire encounter between Floyd and police, has only been seen by a handful of people approved by the court. CNN's Omar Jimenez is one of them, describing the video last month on Court TV.
I think one of the two major aspects that we were able to gain insight to was the emotion in some of these moments and significantly the speed with which these moments escalated. Floyd is literally sobbing after what was an initial set of confusion, asking why this was happening to begin with. But the sobbing continues and he's pleading with officers and asking what he had done.
The officers involved, Derek Chauvin, J. Alexander Cain, Thomas Lane, and Two Tower, all facing criminal charges. Hennepin County Judge Peter Cahill allowed 66 selected members of the public and media to come into the courthouse to watch the police body cam videos on government-owned laptops. The two videos run more than an hour in length. One is from Officer Lane's body cam, the other from Officer J. Alexander Cain, both rookies with just days on the job. When you look at the bottom of this still image, it appears as though the leaked videos may have been recorded during one of those viewing sessions. An investigation has been launched to find out who is responsible for the recordings. The Daily Mail claims the videos were, quote, leaked to them. Earl Gray, attorney for Officer Thomas Lane, told Court TV's Ashley Banfield the body camera videos helps his client's case.
Could you share with us some of the things that you saw on your client's body cam?
Floyd struggled a little bit coming out of the vehicle. They had to pull him out. He appeared to be on something. His mouth was frothing. And he told to put his hands on top of his head, which is the procedure they do. And then when he put his hands on his head, they attempted to handcuff him. The handcuffing was resisted, not violently, but he struggled.
Court TV, along with other media companies, filed a motion seeking release of the police videos in July. There's been no ruling on that. Derek Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. He remains in custody. The other three are out on bail, charged with aiding and abetting murder and manslaughter.
All right. There's a couple issues here. One is, should it be released, should it not be released? We'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about what this is. This is evidence. When there's a trial, this is evidence that the jury will see. And what we do know about this evidence that has been sealed is that the Attorney General, who's the prosecutor of this, the state Attorney General, who's the lead prosecutor here, did not want to release it. And spoke about that and said, I don't want to release it because I don't want to do anything that might hurt the prosecution of this case. And the defense attorneys are saying, release the video. So what does that tell me about this video and what kind of evidence it is and who's it's going to help and who's it going to hurt? I don't think it helps the prosecution here. I really don't. Let me bring in the think tank because we've got two great prosecutors, former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani and the state attorney of Palm Beach County, Dave Arenberg. Alana Yakovlev is a criminal defense attorney, giving us that perspective. But Neama, let me start with you. I mean, if the lead prosecutor doesn't want it released, all the defense attorneys want it released, and now it's been leaked, and I've taken a peek at it, I've seen it. This does not bolster the prosecution's case.
It doesn't help the prosecution's case against Lane, but really, I mean, this order is here to protect the rights of the criminal defendants, right? And their attorneys want it released. What Judge Cahill is doing makes no sense. You know, I applaud what Court TV is doing, filing their motion. I mean, the transcripts are public, right? They're filed in support of the defendant's motions, right? So those are there. The members of the media can go and actually watch the video, but the public can't. So, you know, I know the state attorney general says they don't want it released, and you know, they said they weren't the source of the leak, but I don't think it's really kind of a strong push. It's one of those kind of appellate issues. They want to sort of protect the defendant's rights. But, you know, we've talked about it before. It really, you know, Lane and Tower really going to sort of point the finger at Chauvin, right? And it just, there is some evidence to suggest that, you know, maybe, not to say I agree, but maybe they wanted to provide Floyd medical attention and they weren't the ones responsible. But again, kind of going back to the way it was charged with the felony murder, they don't need that intent, right? They just need to intend to have assaulted or, you know, imprisoned Floyd, and that's enough for them to be on the hook for the murder. So might help the defense a little bit, but it doesn't really move the needle much. And the public has an absolute right to this evidence. There's no reason the judge should be withholding it like he has.
Dave Arenberg, let me ask you, because we all saw the initial bystander citizen cell phone cameras of what happened here, and we saw it. And unfortunately, we saw a man die. You take a look at this video, you get the rest of the story. And what I see is someone who is suspected of being under the influence of some drugs early on. I see him resisting on that video as well. I see defense attorneys jumping all over that. And ultimately, Dave, I see the defense, even of Chauvin, making an argument to this jury that the cause of death was not the knee on the neck. They are going to argue that it's somehow related to him, the drugs he was taking, perhaps the impact of COVID that he had, this drugs that were found in his system from the autopsy, and as evidenced by what, how he's acting and what they're seeing in this body cam footage.
Vinny, I've got to push back a little bit. I agree with Neama, and I know it's good TV if the prosecutors can battle it out with each other, but I agree with what he said, that I don't think this really helps, obviously, the prosecution, but I don't think it really hurts the prosecution. Did you see the part of the video where Officer Lane walks up to a guy, George Floyd, who was accused of passing a $20 bill, an unarmed man who was accused of a nonviolent crime, and he's holding his gun up at him? The escalation of this started at the beginning. And besides, the transcript had been out there anyway, so I don't think the video really adds too much. So again, agree with Neama, let's release the whole thing, because if the issue is, can the defendants get a fair trial based on the release of the video? Well, you've already released an excerpt of the video, and it really isn't fair not to release the whole thing. But I do not believe that this video really gives too much of a lifeline for the defendants. Officer Lane, his lawyer says this exonerates him pretty much. No, he started this, escalating it with his gun out. And then even after he asked the question, should we roll him over on his side? I'm worried about delirium, not worrying about choking, about delirium. He didn't do anything after that. He even held George Floyd down 3 minutes after George Floyd stopped moving and 2 minutes after he knew that George Floyd had no pulse.
Alana, your thoughts? The defense fighting to make this public. They want the world to see this part of what happened. The world has not seen it. Some have taken a peek at part of it that was leaked. Your thoughts about this video? Does this help the defense? Does this perhaps call into question cause of death?
Absolutely. I think causation is going to be one of the major issues at the trial. Additionally, I think one of the police officers is recorded stating that they're trying to call an ambulance because he was worried about an excited delirium. As a result, that would go directly to whether or not they were aiding or acting in concert, because if he was going to go against his superiors and concerned and trying to get him medical help, that goes to the defense element of intent. And of course, defense attorneys are going to want this video released. I think it's very interesting that the video, as captured, is clearly shown that somebody else is recording a video of the video, and that it ended up being outside the jurisdiction of the United States, going through the Daily Mail to release it. I think this would typically taint the jury pool. You know, judges are very careful during voir dire. Even when counsel are asking questions, you can't even ask a question that tends to give a preview of the evidence of the case. So, you know, I could see how the defense counsel has a strategy to have this released.
At the end of the day, it's going to be released in a courtroom. Obviously, Court TV will be covering this trial when it happens, but things are developing each and every day. And I look at that video and I say, release it. Let the public see it. It's not just about the trial. It's about what has happened to our nation as a result of the initial videos that are everywhere. So let America see the rest of the story, because the initial video has impacted a lot of people's lives, has changed law enforcement, has changed the way police departments are being funded around the country. It has had an incredible impact. And if it's going to have the impact, I think we should see the entire story, whatever that story is. That's just me on my little soapbox here in my basement. All right. Stay where you are. We saved this one for last. When we come back, folks, there's a viral video out there. It's another one of these arrest videos, but it's an arrest unlike any other arrest. It's on a beach, but not for, violating the COVID-19 shutdown somewhere. No, it's about a thong. A thong on a beach in the summertime results in someone being detained and handcuffed. It becomes a video, it goes viral. Your reaction next.
If you stop acting like this, what's
Sam, just relax. Just relax, all right? Well, no. So, she's being detained. She's being detained right now. Okay. All right.
The way she's acting just now.
Okay. And how is that? No. How was she just acting in your eyes? That's all I want to see. I just want to.
Tell me she's not going to listen.
No, she didn't say that. She asked you. She asked you if she wants, if you can show her the penal code that says, or the law that says.
I'm not dealing with you. You come in your office so we can explain to you too.
I can hear you. I'm not comfortable right now. Can I just stay here, please?
No. You're coming to a car and we're just going to show you the ordinance.
I just feel uncomfortable.
I'm asking you to come to my car so I can get out the. If you want to see it, you have to come to the car.
I'm really uncomfortable.
We're not going to.
What is this reasoning? We're not going anywhere. You're not going to what?
So, why is it illegal to have a bikini on the beach?
I literally wear this to the beach every day.
You want us to show you? We're going to show you.
Absolutely.
All right, it's a video that's gone viral. That is Sam Panda. She's a pretty famous acrobat. She posted that on Facebook, went viral. She's on a beach down in South Carolina, and I guess someone called police on her, ratting her out, and she ends up getting detained and cuffed for wearing a thong. Well, she then says, well, what's the law? So they bring her up to the squad cars, and one of the officers breaks out a little book here and starts reading her the local ordinance, which says that nudity is prohibited on the beach. And she's like, I'm not nude, I'm wearing a thong. So it raises a lot of questions, like, why is she being detained? Why was she cuffed? And is a thong nudity or not? Well, posted this on social media. Incredible reaction, like through the roof reaction. We begin with our 13th juror. Comment of the day coming from Brett, who says, these cops don't even look like they fully understand the ordinance regarding this alleged nudity. Couldn't the powers to be have simply explicitly defined what nudity is in the context of this ordinance? All right, the state attorney from Palm Beach County, Florida, who I don't know if you have this issue down in Palm Beach County that often, but let me ask you, I know we all learn in law school that defining pornography is very difficult, but how do we define nudity? What is nudity? Don't show me, tell me.
Yeah, I can tell you this is not the reason why I went to law school or ran for state attorney, Vinny. So let me just try to figure this out. I don't know why 4 cops had to show up. I don't know why they handcuffed her. She must have been acting up. The problem with enforcing this ordinance is that it is vague, to your point. And it's hard to know what one person's definition of nudity is compared to another. I know it when I see it is the Supreme Court standard, but there are other people who are walking around who were a bit cheeky, if you will, and they weren't arrested or charged. And so this whole thing is a mess. There is going to be selective prosecution here and selective punishment. So they should have just let this slide. And apparently the acrobat here blamed it on a Karen for making the call. That's one of these privileged individuals who try to call the police on everyone. So this is not where police should be using the resources in the age of COVID.
Carol writing tonight, wearing a thong is nudity. That tiny little string doesn't cover much and very easy to slip and show more than need be. I don't want to see a man in a Speedo or a woman in a thong at the beach if I am with my kid. Very inappropriate. And it may very well be a family beach down. I think they're close to Myrtle Beach. Alana, should we be arresting men in Speedos?
Look, I think I agree with David. It's a complete waste of resources during COVID. However, I did look into the statute and it does specify the word buttocks. So, to the police credit, they were reading from the wording of the city ordinance. And so I think the draconian laws are not exactly in line with fashion. It's something to take up with the legislature. I know there's public decency laws, obscenity laws all throughout the United States. And for the most part, they specify genitalia, which is obviously not something you want to see at a beach with children. But I'm glad, I think they let her go. I think that was a good decision.
Let's get to this buttocks issue. What percentage? Because to me, there's a lot of gray area. There could be a lot of, depending on what you're wearing. You're wearing something like this, or like this. Like, where do we draw the line on this one, Neama?
I mean, this is ridiculous, right? You have 4 officers who are there arresting this woman. Here in LA, I can't get LAPD to arrest a rapist, but apparently in South Carolina, they have time to enforce these kind of laws. I mean, the law on the books as applied is overbroad. The officer's interpretation is overbroad. So what is it? Your buttocks can't be showing, so unless you're wearing boy shorts, something like that. Any type of bikini is going to show part of the buttocks. I mean, this law is ridiculous. Officers' enforcement of it is ridiculous. And this should not have happened. I feel terribly sorry for this woman and outraged at whoever would actually call law enforcement because of an issue like this.
It was a Karen.
All right, let's get to
definitely a Karen.
Let's get to Margie. Margie says, seems like the girl is getting famous for breaking laws. Either way, she should have been ticketed and removed from the beach. Next comment, let's go to Kay. Nudity is without covering. A thing is considered a piece of clothing. She says a thong is considered a piece of clothing. Some Karen got upset her hubby was staring at the woman and called police. Bet. Do we think that's what may have happened here, Alana?
I think so. Just as a woman, I would imagine, especially it's the summertime, women, it's like David said, cheeky is the new line of fashion, and some women sport it, others don't like it. So I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, at the trial, Neama, would you call Cisco as an expert witness for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thong song, G-strings. I mean, we need the whole, encyclopedia of the evolution of the bikini for this one.
All right. That's all I got tonight. That's it, folks. All right. Neama Rahmani, Dave Arenberg, and of course, Alana Yakovlev. Great to have you all on the program tonight. Thank you so much. Thanks for playing along, and we will see you again soon. Okay, folks.